Everyone feels fear. It's part of being human. Fear is one of the most powerful emotions we experience, and it has been with us since the beginning of time. It's our brain's way of trying to protect us from danger, rejection, or failure. It's that voice that whispers, "What if this doesn't work out?" Or, "What if people laugh at you?" Fear lives in everyone, in the strongest leaders, the most successful entrepreneurs, and even in those who appear unshakable on the outside. The difference between people who stay stuck and those who move forward isn't that one group feels fear and the other doesn't. It's that achievers have learned to act despite the fear. The problem isn't feeling fear, the problem is letting it control your decisions. When fear becomes the steering wheel of your life, it will always drive you towards safety, not success. It will tell you to stay where it's comfortable, to play it safe, to not take risks because you might fail. It will convince you that staying the same is better than trying something new and risking embarrassment or rejection. But safety is an illusion. In trying to avoid pain, we often create a different kind of suffering. The pain of regret, the weight of what if, the sadness of wasted potential. Think about it. How many dreams die not because they were impossible, but because someone was too afraid to try? How many brilliant ideas were never born because someone thought, "I'm not ready yet," or "What will people think?" Fear doesn't just stop actions, it stops growth. It builds invisible walls around your mind, trapping you in a loop of hesitation and self-doubt. Great achievers, the ones who build empires, make discoveries, inspire nations, feel fear too. They just don't let it sit in the driver's seat. They've learned that courage is not the absence of fear, it's action in the presence of fear. They understand that fear can be a teacher, not an enemy. When fear says, "You can't do this," they use it as motivation to prove it wrong. When fear whispers, "You might fail," they reply, "Maybe, but I'll learn, I'll grow, and I'll come back stronger." Take any great person you admire. They've faced moments of deep uncertainty. They've questioned themselves, doubted their abilities, and feared the outcome. But they took one step forward anyway. That's how growth happens, one brave step at a time. They didn't wait for fear to disappear because it never fully does. They learned to carry fear with them and move forward regardless. And with each action, the voice of fear became smaller and smaller until it no longer had control. The truth is, fear is a liar dressed as a protector. It will disguise itself as logic, saying things like, "It's not the right time," or "You're not ready yet," but deep down, you know what's really happening. It's trying to keep you from stepping into the unknown. The unknown feels scary because it's unpredictable, but that's also where all your growth lives. Every dream you've ever had is on the other side of that uncertainty. You can't get there by waiting until you're fearless. You get there by walking with your fear and refusing to let it hold you back. When you stop letting fear make your choices, your entire life begins to change. You start taking risks you once avoided. You speak up when you used to stay silent. You try new things, meet new people, explore new possibilities. You start realizing that fear loses its grip every time you face it. What once felt impossible begins to feel achievable. The same situations that once paralyzed you now challenge and excite you. You begin to trust yourself, not because fear is gone, but because you've learned you're stronger than it. Most people wait for the perfect moment, the day they wake up and no longer feel afraid. But that day never comes. You don't become brave by waiting, you become brave by doing. Every time you take action, even a small one, you prove to yourself that fear is not in charge. You are. Fear will always exist before every big decision, before every leap of faith. But remember, it's just a feeling, not a command. It's a signal that you're stepping into something that matters, something that could change your life. And that's exactly why you must go through it. Because when you stop running from fear and start walking toward it, something incredible happens. You realize that fear was never as powerful as you thought. It was your belief in its power that held you back. Once you take that power away, you begin to live freely, boldly, and unapologetically. 90% of what you fear never actually happens. Think about that for a moment. Most of the things that keep you awake at night, the thoughts that make you hesitate before taking a step forward, they're illusions. They exist in your mind, not in reality. Fear feeds on imagination. It paints worst-case scenarios that almost never come true. Your mind creates stories about what might happen, and before you even take action, you're already convinced it will end badly. But reality is rarely as cruel as your thoughts make it seem. Fear often comes from overthinking, from analyzing every possible outcome until you paralyze yourself with doubt. You begin to ask questions like, what if I'm not good enough? What if they reject me? What if it doesn't work out? And the more you repeat these questions, the louder your fear becomes. Doubt grows stronger with attention. It takes root in your mind, feeding off every second you spend thinking about what could go wrong. Before you know it, your imagination becomes your cage, and you lock the door from the inside. But what if you flip the script? What if instead of asking, what if I fail, you ask, what if I succeed? Imagine how differently your life would look if your thoughts were focused on possibility instead of fear. Most people never realize how much power their thoughts have. The direction of your life is shaped by what you focus on. If your focus is on fear, your world shrinks. If your focus is on faith, it expands. Every time you imagine failure, you create an emotional experience that feels real to your body. Your heart beats faster, your palms sweat, your confidence drops. The mind doesn't always know the difference between imagination and reality. That's why it's so important to choose what you visualize. If you keep playing failure scenarios in your head, your brain will make you feel like you've already lost. But when you imagine success, when you see yourself achieving, winning, growing, your brain begins to work toward that image. You start aligning your actions with your vision instead of your fears. The truth is, fear doesn't predict the future. It just limits it. It doesn't stop bad things from happening, it stops you from trying. And that's far more dangerous than any failure could ever be. Because even if you fail, you learn, you grow, you adapt. But if you let fear control you, you never even give yourself the chance to evolve. You stay stuck in the same cycle, comfortable, safe, but unsatisfied. Overthinking is the silent killer of dreams. It convinces you that caution is wisdom when in reality, it's hesitation disguised as logic. You think you're preparing, but you're actually procrastinating. You tell yourself you're waiting for the right time, the right opportunity, the right confidence. But the truth is, the right time doesn't exist. You create it by moving forward despite uncertainty. Doubt, too, is a master of disguise. It doesn't shout, it whispers. It says, maybe you should wait, or you're not ready yet. It sounds reasonable, but underneath, it's fear doing its job, keeping you small, keeping you safe, keeping you ordinary. The longer you listen, the stronger it becomes. The moment you challenge it, the weaker it gets. Doubt only has power when you believe it. The people who make a difference in this world are not those who never feel afraid. They're the ones who refuse to let fear make their decisions. They've learned that imagination can be a weapon or a tool, depending on how you use it. When you use it to picture the worst, it holds you back. When you use it to picture the best, it pulls you forward. The same mental energy that creates anxiety can also create ambition, if you choose to direct it. Think about the last time you were afraid to start something, maybe a project, a relationship, a new chapter in life. You probably played out dozens of failure scenarios in your mind, but when you finally did it, most of those fears never became reality. In fact, you might have even laughed later, realizing how much time you wasted worrying about things that didn't happen. That's what fear does. It makes small problems look enormous and future possibilities look dangerous. But once you take action, the illusion fades. Reality is never as terrifying as imagination. So the next time fear starts whispering, what if I fail? Don't silence it. Answer it. Say yes. I might fail, but I might also succeed. I might surprise myself. I might create something amazing. Because every great story begins with uncertainty. Every dream starts with the possibility of failure, but also the potential for greatness. When you shift your focus from fear to faith, from failure to success, from doubt to belief, your world begins to transform. Your mind is powerful. It can either build your future or block it. The choice is yours, to keep feeding fear with your thoughts or to starve it by imagining a better outcome. Fear thrives on attention. Courage grows through action. And the moment you begin to believe in your ability to handle whatever comes, you'll realize that fear was never the enemy. It was just a signal that something meaningful was waiting for you on the other side. Every major breakthrough begins with stepping into discomfort. Nothing extraordinary is ever created in the space of comfort. Every great invention, every bold decision, every success story starts with someone taking a step into the unknown. Discomfort is not your enemy, it's the signal that you're growing. It's proof that you're stretching beyond your limits. Growth and comfort can't exist together. You either choose to stay safe where you are, or you choose to evolve into who you're meant to be. When you face what scares you, you build confidence, courage, and strength. Courage doesn't come before the act, it comes because of the act. You don't wake up one day fearless, you become fearless through action. Every time you confront your fears, you teach your mind a powerful lesson: I can handle this. You prove to yourself that fear doesn't define your limits, your mindset does, and the more you do it, the stronger you become. What once felt impossible begins to feel normal. The wall that looked so high yesterday starts to look smaller today. That's how growth happens, one uncomfortable step at a time. Discomfort is where transformation begins. It's the place where your excuses meet your potential. It's the training ground for your mind, your will, and your determination. People often say they want success, confidence, or strength, but they forget that all of those things are born from struggle. You can't build mental muscles without lifting emotional weights. You can't develop courage without first feeling fear. You can't discover your limits without first testing them. Discomfort isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's life's way of getting you ready for the next level. But the truth is, most people run from discomfort. They confuse it with danger. The moment something feels difficult, they stop. The moment things get uncertain, they retreat. And that's where their growth ends. Comfort zones feel safe, but they're silent prisons. They keep you stuck in the same routines, the same thoughts, the same results. Inside your comfort zone, you might not fail, but you'll never truly live either. It's where dreams go to sleep under the blanket of security. Imagine a seed planted in the ground. It's buried in darkness, surrounded by pressure and resistance. But it's that very struggle, pushing against the soil, that makes it grow. If it stays buried without pushing through the dirt, it'll never become a tree. You're the same. The pressure, the fear, the uncertainty, that's your soil. It's not there to bury you, it's there to grow you. Think of every time you took a leap, maybe speaking in public, starting a new job, moving to a new city, or chasing a dream others doubted. You probably felt nervous, unsure, maybe even terrified. But after you did it, after you faced it, you came out stronger. That's the beauty of discomfort. It turns ordinary moments into milestones. The moment you do what you thought you couldn't do, your self-belief expands. You start seeing yourself differently. You stop underestimating your own power. Fear and discomfort are the twin guards standing at the door of your potential. Most people see them and turn away. But the few who walk through, those are the ones who change their lives. They understand that growth is supposed to feel awkward, uncertain, and even painful at times. You can't become something new while staying the same. Change demands sacrifice, the sacrifice of ease, familiarity, and predictability. Comfort zones are seductive. They whisper, "Stay here, it's safe." But what they don't tell you is that comfort slowly drains your ambition. It makes you numb to your dreams. It replaces purpose with routine. You start existing instead of living. You tell yourself you're fine, but deep down, you know you're settling, and nothing great ever comes from settling. Comfort doesn't challenge you, it doesn't test your limits, it doesn't teach you who you really are. Only discomfort does. Every successful person you've ever admired had to walk through discomfort to get to where they are. Athletes train beyond exhaustion. Entrepreneurs face rejection after rejection. Artists create and fail 100 times before they find their rhythm. They all share one thing in common. They didn't let comfort dictate their destiny. They understood that every level of growth requires a new level of discomfort. Discomfort is not there to stop you, it's there to strengthen you. When you face fear, when you push through self-doubt, when you take that uncomfortable step forward, you build resilience. You discover that pain doesn't last forever, but progress does. You realize that the discomfort you feared was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to develop you. And once you've tasted the power of pushing past your limits, you'll never want to go back. Because beyond that fear, beyond that discomfort, lies everything you've ever wanted: freedom, confidence, fulfillment, and growth. Failure is temporary, but regret lasts forever. The pain of failing fades with time, but the pain of wondering, what if I had tried, stays with you for life. Failure is not the end of your journey. It's a part of it. It's not a sign that you're weak or unworthy. It's proof that you had the courage to step out of your comfort zone. Every person who has achieved something meaningful has faced failure. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is simple. Successful people don't let failure define them. They let it refine them. Failure is a teacher, not a punishment. It reveals what works and what doesn't. It shapes your resilience, strengthens your character, and deepens your understanding of yourself. When you fail, you gain perspective that success can never give you. You learn the value of patience, discipline, and persistence. You realize that success isn't about getting it right the first time. It's about not giving up until you do. Every failure pushes you closer to the truth of what works, and that truth becomes the foundation of your future success. Think about it. How many people avoid chasing their dreams because they're afraid of failing? They play it safe, staying in jobs they hate or routines that drain them, all because they fear the embarrassment of falling short. But here's the reality: you can fail by trying, or you can fail by doing nothing. The only difference is that when you try and fail, you grow. When you do nothing, you stay exactly where you are. Failure has lessons, regret has none. Regret is the silent thief of peace. It shows up years later, whispering reminders of all the chances you didn't take. It makes you replay moments when you could have acted but didn't, when you could have spoken but stayed quiet, when you could have leapt but froze in fear. It's the voice that says, you could have been more. And that's the kind of pain that doesn't fade. It lingers because it's rooted in inaction. The one thing you can't go back and change. Every failure teaches you something success never could. Success often hides the lessons. Failure exposes them. When things go right, you celebrate. But when things go wrong, you reflect. That reflection builds wisdom, and wisdom builds strength. Failure humbles you, but it also empowers you. It reminds you that you're human, capable of falling, but also capable of rising. It forces you to dig deeper, to find answers, to improve, to evolve. The most powerful people aren't those who never fail. They're the ones who turn failure into feedback. Look at every inventor, leader, or artist who's left a mark on history. None of them reached greatness without falling first. Thomas Edison didn't discover the light bulb in one try. He failed over 1,000 times. But each failure taught him one more way that didn't work, leading him closer to the one that did. Walt Disney was fired for lacking imagination. Oprah was told she wasn't fit for television. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. These weren't signs of defeat, they were tests of perseverance, and those tests built the strength that made them unstoppable. Those who learn from failure and fear become unstoppable. They understand that every setback is a setup for a comeback. They don't let fear of falling keep them from flying. Instead, they see fear as a compass. It points toward the areas where they have room to grow. They walk into fear, knowing that's where growth lives. They fall, they get up, they learn, and they rise higher each time. The more they fail, the stronger they become, because failure loses its power over someone who refuses to quit. Fear feeds on failure when you treat it as final. But when you treat failure as feedback, fear starts to lose its grip. You stop seeing mistakes as signs of weakness and start seeing them as steps on your journey. Every time you fail and rise again, you take a little more power away from fear. Eventually, fear becomes just noise in the background, a reminder that you're still growing, still evolving, still pushing forward. Most people fear failure because they equate it with loss of pride, status, or confidence. But true failure isn't falling down. True failure is refusing to rise again. Falling means you tried. It means you had the courage to step into the arena, and that courage is something many never find. The moment you decide that failure won't stop you, you become free. You realize that the world doesn't end when you fail. It just gives you another chance to try again, this time with more knowledge, more strength, and more determination. Failure doesn't define you, your response to it does. Each setback has the potential to shape a stronger, wiser, and more resilient version of you. The pain of failure is short term, but the pride of persistence lasts a lifetime. Every time you stand back up, you tell the world that fear cannot control your story. You may stumble, but you're still moving forward. You may lose battles, but you're still in the fight, and that's what makes you unstoppable. Action is the ultimate antidote to fear. No amount of thinking, analyzing, or waiting can eliminate fear. Only action can. Fear grows stronger the longer you sit still. It feeds on hesitation and expands inside your mind when you avoid what scares you. But the moment you take even the smallest step forward, fear begins to lose its grip. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. The shadows vanish, not because they were defeated, but because they were never real to begin with. You realize fear was just your imagination magnified by inaction. The moment you start moving toward your goal, fear starts fading. You stop overthinking and start doing. You begin to replace questions with results, doubt with discovery, and hesitation with progress. Fear thrives in stillness but weakens in momentum. The human mind is wired to adapt. Once you take that first uncomfortable step, your body and mind begin to adjust. What seemed terrifying a moment ago starts to feel manageable. Every step forward proves that the fear you felt wasn't a wall, it was a fog. You just needed to walk through it. To see clearly. Action creates clarity. It shows you what works, what doesn't, and what to adjust. Fear loves uncertainty, but action destroys uncertainty. You don't have to see the entire path to start walking. You just need to see the next step. Each move you make brings you closer to understanding. Each attempt teaches you something new about yourself and your goal. People often wait until they feel ready, but readiness is a myth. You don't wait to feel confident before taking action. You take action to become confident. Confidence is born from experience, and experience only comes from doing. The greatest enemy of progress isn't failure, it's paralysis. Thinking too much, planning too long, doubting too deeply, these are the habits that keep you stuck. You convince yourself you're preparing, but you're actually delaying. You call it being cautious, but it's fear wearing the mask of logic. There's a time for strategy, yes, but eventually you must move. Action transforms potential energy into momentum. Once you start, everything begins to shift. Opportunities appear, ideas evolve, and the fear that once looked so large starts shrinking in your rearview mirror. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's doing what's right even when you're afraid. Too many people think courage means being fearless, but that's not true. Courage means feeling fear and acting anyway. It means acknowledging your doubts, your insecurities, your worries, and still showing up. It's easy to be brave when nothing's at stake, but real courage is standing tall when your voice shakes, when your heart races, when everything inside you screams, "Turn back." Courage doesn't mean you don't feel fear, it means fear doesn't make your decisions anymore. Every person who has achieved something meaningful has acted through fear, not without it. The first time a pilot flew, the first time an artist revealed their work, the first time an entrepreneur risked everything. None of them were fearless. They were just willing to take the leap anyway. That's what sets achievers apart, not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let it stop them. They understand that fear is a signal, not a stop sign. It's your mind's way of saying this matters. It means you're stepping into something that has the potential to change your life. Action builds evidence. Every time you face fear and move forward, you collect proof that you are stronger than you thought. You begin to trust yourself. You start to realize that fear is rarely as powerful as it seems. That confidence compounds over time. With every bold step, you build a foundation of self-belief that becomes unshakable. The things that once terrified you eventually become second nature. That's the magic of movement. It transforms anxiety into strength, hesitation into habit, and dreams into achievements. Fear thrives in your imagination but dies in your execution. The more you act, the less room fear has to grow. It can't coexist with mom. Entum. When you're focused on moving forward, you don't have time to entertain fear's lies. You're too busy progressing, too busy learning, too busy building the life you want. And once you've felt the power of taking action, you'll never again want to stand still, because you'll know that motion is freedom. Taking action doesn't mean you won't stumble. You will. But each step forward, even if imperfect, is better than standing still. Perfection is not the goal, progress is. The more you act, the more fearless you become. You stop waiting for confidence and start creating it. You stop waiting for the right time and start realizing that this is the right time. The secret isn't to eliminate fear, it's to move faster than it can catch you. Every act of courage, no matter how small, weakens fear's control. Every moment of action pushes you closer to the life you deserve. Action turns hesitation into momentum, and momentum turns dreams into reality. And the truth is, you don't have to be fearless to change your life. You just have to be willing to take the first step, even when your knees are shaking. Because once you move, fear loses the power it once had. You stop being trapped by what if and start living in what's next. Fear is one of life's greatest illusions. It disguises itself as protection, but in reality, it's often the barrier standing between you and the life you were meant to live. We spend so much of our lives running from fear, hiding behind excuses, waiting for the perfect moment, but that moment never comes. Because fear doesn't disappear on its own, it fades only when you face it head on. The truth is simple. The longer you wait to conquer fear, the more power it gains. But the moment you act, its power begins to crumble. Every one of us feels fear. It doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. The strongest people in the world aren't the ones who never feel afraid. They're the ones who move forward despite it. They understand that courage isn't about feeling invincible, it's about feeling terrified and still showing up. Every breakthrough, every victory, every success story begins the same way, with someone deciding that fear would no longer control their decisions. They stepped forward, not because they were fearless, but because they refused to let fear define their future. Most of what we fear never even happens. We create monsters in our minds that are far larger than reality. Fear thrives on imagination, the what-ifs, the doubts, the endless possibilities of failure. But the moment you take action, you discover that the wall you were so afraid of was never solid. It was made of smoke. You realize that you've been fighting ghosts that vanish the second you confront them. What you thought would break you often becomes the thing that makes you, because fear doesn't stop events from happening, it only stops you from living. Growth never happens in comfort. The life you want, the confidence you seek, the success you dream, none of it lives inside your comfort zone. Comfort may feel safe, but safety doesn't create greatness. Every time you choose comfort over challenge, you choose to stay small. Discomfort, on the other hand, is a sign of progress. It's the stretching of your potential. It's proof that you're growing. When you face what scares you, when you take that uncomfortable step, you begin to transform. You build resilience, strength, and courage. And one day, what once felt impossible will become your new normal. Failure, too, is part of the process. The fear of failure stops more dreams than failure itself ever could. But failure is never permanent. It's feedback. It teaches you lessons success never will. Every stumble, every setback, every no you hear is shaping you into someone wiser and stronger. The pain of failure fades, but the pain of regret lingers forever. Regret is the real enemy, the voice that says, I should have tried. You can recover from a mistake, but you can't recover from a life unlived. So fall, fail, learn, and rise. Because every time you get up, fear loses another piece of its control. Action is where fear dies. The more you move, the smaller fear becomes. You don't think your way out of fear, you act your way out. The moment you take that first step toward your goal, your focus shifts from fear to progress. You start realizing that the thing you were afraid of wasn't as big as you imagined. Movement builds momentum, and momentum builds confidence. And confidence is born not from thinking, but from doing. Every small action you take, every fear you face, every challenge you overcome, it all compounds into strength. You start to see yourself differently. You start to believe in your power to create change. The truth is, fear will never completely disappear. It will always whisper in your ear before you do something meaningful. But that's okay. Because fear is not a sign that you're weak. It's a sign that you're about to do something that matters. It's proof that you're stepping into something bigger than yourself. So instead of running from fear, listen to it. Let it remind you that you're alive, that you're growing, that you're daring to live a life beyond the ordinary. You don't have to be fearless to succeed. You just have to be brave enough to take the first step, even when fear walks beside you. Because the truth is, fear will always exist, but it doesn't have to be in control. You are the one behind the wheel. And the moment you decide that fear no longer dictates your choices, your entire life begins to change. You start walking taller, dreaming bigger, and believing deeper. You start living with purpose instead of hesitation. So when fear tells you to stop, whisper back, "Watch me." When it tries to hold you back, move anyway. When it tells you that you're not ready, remind yourself that no one ever is. They just start. Because once you take that step, once you act despite the fear, something incredible, pins. You realize you were powerful all along. And that realization, that's the beginning of freedom. That's the moment your real future begins.